Yes, it seems we are live, but I don't see anything happening in the. Yes,
We are live.
yes, we are live.
Eh,
So, welcome, Mystic Daddy, as I should
Hello.
call you by your pen name. So, thank you for joining me in this initiative of not just book reading but also discussing the life of Swami Vivekananda in a podcast format is what I'm thinking. So thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thank you, Sonalidi, for having me. And it's always a privilege, and it's always makes me happy to talk about Swami Vivekananda, be it any occasion. And we will be doing this for quite some time. So every now and then, for me, it is beneficial because there will be a positive vibration as long as we are reading and contemplating upon his life and his words. So let's see how. Let's start.
Yes, let's start. And by God's grace, with a good intention, uh,
Mm,
we are setting off and hoping that it turns out well. So, what we are trying to do is that this message is for the audience, whoever is probably will be watching this podcast later on or maybe watching during the live streaming. It's a book reading from the book called The Life of Swami Vivekananda by his Eastern and Western disciples. So there are two volumes of the book. So we are reading from the first volume. And in this same channel, eight different chapters, like the first eight chapters were already completed. And like chapter wise there are one episode like that. So now we are going to read the ninth chapter, which is trials and hardships. So it is right after, I think, the man in the making chapter, where the man in the making is the period when Swami Vivekanand was a very young boy, like in his college days and all. So after that, the next transition of his life, how he went ahead further, and what are the trials and hardships he had to face to pursue the, you know, whatever he was trying to do with his spirituality and the overall impact of it in on India and world wide. So probably we're going to read about that. So let's begin, Mystic Diary. Okay. Uh, you are on mute, I suppose, but I'll start. Noren's days now passed in study and meditation. Often he went to Dakshineshwar. At his own home, he lived in a room all to himself. Vishwanath Datta, whose ambition was to see Noren a great legal light, made him an assistant to Nimai Charan Boshu, a well known attorney at law. Vishwanath was also desirous of seeing his son marry. On several occasions, he had planned for Noren's marriage, but for some reason or other, arrangements were always broken off. Sri Ramakrishna was greatly opposed to Noren's marriage. He prayed to Mother that it should never take place. He was greatly relieved when such negotiations fell through, for he held that Noren was not born for the love of any single person or for the rearing up of a family, but for the saving of souls. Noren's father, however, did secure an alliance with a powerful and wealthy family of Calcutta, who were ready to pay a magnificent sum as dowry to Norin's people and sent him to England for education. But before the marriage could take place, the father passed away. Norin now became his own master. His determination to remain unmarried was inflexible. The ideal of celibacy became his ideal of. I just lost it. Where is the line?
The
Yeah,
ideal of
yeah,
celibacy.
yeah. I'll have to pause for a while. I got an important call which I have to attend actually. So I'll just pause a while. I'm extremely sorry for the interruption. So, resuming, the ideal of celibacy became a principle with him as his passion for purity became stronger. And when the members of the family would press him to lead the householder's life and repeatedly urged him to marry, he said to them with vehemence, "What are you going to drown me? What are you going to drown me? Once married, it will be all over with me." Norin often spoke about the glory of the monastic life to his friends. They did not understand and tried to induce him to turn his attention to worldly pursuits. Why not settle down to definite plans, Norin? You have a great career before you if you will only look more towards the prospects which the world holds out, said a friend. Norin met this remark with a shrug and told them that he had often desired to possess a reputation, position, and popularity with wealth and power. But reflection had shown him that death comes and engulfs all. Why should then one build up greatness which can be destroyed by death? The life of the monk is really great, for he seeks to push aside the power of death. He seeks a changeless reality, while the world deals with and falls with the conditions of change. The friends were not convinced. "The trouble is," said one of them, "that Noren has met an old man who goes into trances and lives a monk's life in the grounds of the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar on the banks of the Ganga. He is always meditating and talking about God and knows nothing about the world. This man is upsetting all of Noren's ambitions and is turning his mind from worldly affairs and ruining his future." The name of this old man is Ramakrishna Paramhansa. Noren, if you have any sense, give up going to see him. It is hampering your studies and it will ruin your whole future if you continue. You have great talents. You can attain anything if you set your will to it and give up going to Dakshineshwar. Noren replied very gravely, "You see, you do not understand. I myself do not understand. No, even I do not understand, but I love that old man, that saint, Sri Ramakrishna." If Narendra did not go to Dakshineshwar for several days, the master would come to his disciple in Calcutta, when he would give Naren counsel regarding meditation and other spiritual exercises. He was afraid that Naren, unable to bear the importunities of his parents and relatives, would accept the bondage of married life. He often encouraged him to live the strict life of brahmacharya and said one day, "A man develops subtle power as a result of strict observance of the vows of celibacy for 12 years. Then he can understand and grasp very subtle things which otherwise elude his intellect. Through that understanding, the aspirant can get direct revelation of God. That pure understanding alone enables him to realize truth." The ladies of the family concluded that Norin was averse to marriage as a result of his intimacy with Sri Ramakrishna. Referring to this, Norin said later, "One day my grandmother overheard my master speaking in my room about the efficacy of a celibate life. She told of this to my parents. They became greatly concerned lest I should renounce the world and were increasingly anxious that I should marry. My mother was especially fearful lest I should leave the family to take upon myself the vows of monastic life. She often spoke of the matter to me, but I would give a casual reply. But all their plannings for my marriage were frustrated by the strong will of the master. On one occasion, all negotiations of marriage were settled, when a petty difference of opinion arose and the engagement was broken. Norin, as we have seen, sat for his BA examination in 1884. Some days after the examination, he suddenly came face to face with the grim reality of the world. His light-heartedness and boyishness of spirit received a rude shock. It was the early part of 1884. The examination result was not yet out. He had gone one evening about 2 miles from the city of Calcutta to visit a friend at Baranagar. It was night and there was much talk. Just as the merriment and song were at their height, a messenger came from Norin's home with the news that his father had died suddenly of heart disease. The news overwhelmed Norin. He hastened at once to Calcutta. The mother, the two sisters, and two younger brothers of Norin were waiting and weeping. Norin was dazed. He could neither weep nor speak. According to custom, he performed the last rites for his father. Vishwanath's sudden death placed the entire family in a desperate condition, for he was the only earning member and always spent more than he earned. The creditors knocked at the door. Relatives who had been indebted to his father in so many ways now turned into enemies. They even resolved to deprive the family of its living quarters. Though Narendra had no income, he was compelled to maintain 7 or 8 persons. Came days of suffering. From comfort, Norin was suddenly thrown into the direst poverty, facing at times even actual starvation. Later, he made efforts to forget those terrible days, but in vain. So dark were they, so heavy the clouds of fate, yet he is the real man who meets fate fearlessly and with power, the captain of his soul. This Norin did. He passed his BA examination and was admitted to the law class. In college, he was the poorest of the poor. Even shoes became a luxury. His garments were of the coarest cloth, and many times he went to his classes without food. Often he became faint with hunger and weakness. His friends now and then invited him to their houses. He would chat happily with them for long hours, but when food was offered, the vision of the desolation at his home would come up in his mind and prevent him from eating. He would leave with the excuse that he had a pressing engagement elsewhere. On reaching home, he would eat as little as possible in order that the others might have enough. Since his passing away, his mother has told many stories of the sacrifices her son made for her at that time. Often he would refuse to eat on the plea that he had already eaten at the house of a friend, when the fact was he did not eat at home for fear of depriving others of a full meal. Such was the greatness and such was the fineness of the man. At the same time, he tried to be his ordinary boyish, joyous self and to make light of his trials. The Datta family was proud in a lordly way and concealed its misery under the cloak of pride. His friends, sons of wealthy families of Calcutta, drove up in magnificent carriages to Narendra's home to take him for drives and pleasure trips, never suspecting that his wasting away physically was due to any other cause than an exaggerated grief at the loss of his father. To make matters worse, a dispute arose with a branch of the family over the very house in which Norin and his mother lived. On some far fetched basis, a case was made out against them, and the affair was brought into the courts. The contestants demanded that the house be partitioned, they to receive the larger and better portion. This was a blow to Norin. His mother sank under it, that they were to have their affairs aired in public. The case dragged on and on. During the trial, several incidents occurred which revealed the temper, the character, and the wit of Norin. Finally, the case was decided in favor of Norin's family. After that, things became easier but by no means comfortable. For several years, it was a painful struggle to obtain the coarsest food and clothing. Yet they were happy when they remembered that the home was theirs and they were together. Noren made every effort to make both ends meet. He became a Freemason, hoping that the social advantages thereby to be gained would also create a financial opportunity for him. He became a teacher in one of Vidyasagar's institutions, but gave that up in a month's time for better opportunities. It was a hand to mouth existence. There were moments when Norin despaired, but he was too brave to show what he felt. In other trying times later, the memory of these struggles and hardships gave him strength to carry on, for nothing could be worse than the evils through which he had already successfully passed. The relationship between mother and son was deepened a hundredfold through these tempestuous experiences, and she was made to recognize through them that in Noreen was the trait of character which she especially admired in his father, never, never to acknowledge defeat. The following is Noreen's own description of this darkest period of his life. Even before the period of mourning was over, I had to knock about in search of a job. Starving and barefooted, I wandered from office to office under the scorching noonday sun with an application in hand, one or two intimate friends who sympathized with me in my misfortunes accompanying me sometimes. But everywhere the door was slammed in my face. This first contact with the reality of life convinced me that unselfish sympathy was a rarity in the world. There was no place in it for the weak, the poor, and the destitute. I noticed that those who only a few days ago would have been proud to help me in any way now turned their face against me, though they had enough and to spare. Seeing all this, the world sometimes seemed to me to be the handiwork of the devil. One day, weary and footsore, I sat down in the shade of the Octar Octarlani monument in the Maidan. Some friends of mine happened to be there, one of whom sang a song about the overflowing grace of God, perhaps to comfort me. It was like a terrible blow on my head. I remembered the helpless condition of my mother and brothers and exclaimed in bitter anguish and despondency, "Will you please stop that song? Such fancies may be pleasing to those who are born with a silver spoon in their mouth and have no starving relatives at home." Yes, there was a time when I too thought like that. But today, before the hard facts of life, it sounds like grim mockery. My friend must have been wounded. How could he fathom the dire misery that had forced these words out of my mouth? Sometimes, when I found that there were not enough provisions for for the family and my purse was empty, I would pretend to my mother that I had an invitation to dine out and remain practically without food. Out of self-respect, I could not disclose the facts to others. My rich friends sometimes requested me to come to their homes or gardens and sing. I had to comply when I could not avoid it. I did not feel inclined to express my woes before them, nor did they try themselves to find out my difficulties. A few among them sometimes used to ask me, "Why do you look so pale and weak today?" Only one of them came to know about my poverty without my knowledge, and now and then sent anonymous help to my mother, by which act of kindness he has put me under a deep debt of gratitude. Some of my old friends who earned their livelihood by unfair means asked me to join them. A few among them who had been compelled to follow this dubious way of life by sudden turns of fortune, as in my case, really felt some sympathy for me. There were other troubles also. Various temptations came in my way. A rich woman sent me an ugly proposal to end my days of penury, which I sternly rejected with scorn. Another woman also made similar overtures to me. I said to her, "You have wasted your life seeking the pleasures of the flesh. The dark shadows of death are before you. Have you done anything to face that? Give up all these filthy desires and remember God." In spite of all these troubles, however, I never lost faith in the existence of God, nor in His divine mercy. Every morning, taking His name, I got up and went out in search of a job. One day, my mother overheard me and said bitterly, "Hush, you fool! You have been crying yourself hoarse for God from your childhood, and what has He done for you?" I was stung to the quick. Doubt crossed my mind. Does God really exist? I thought. And if so, does He really hear the fervent prayer of man? Then why is there no response to my passionate appeals? Why is there so much woe in His benign kingdom? Why does Satan rule in the realm of the merciful God? Pandit Ishwarchandra Vidyasagar's words, "If God is good and gracious, why then do millions of people die for want of a few morsels of food at times of famine?" rang in my ears with bitter irony. I was exceedingly cross. I was exceedingly cross with God. It was also the most opportune moment for doubt to creep into my heart. It was ever against my nature to do anything secretly. On the contrary, it was a habit with me from my boyhood not to hide even my thoughts from others through fear or anything else. So it was quite natural for me now to proceed to prove before the world that God was a myth, or that even if He existed, to call upon Him was fruitless. Soon the report gained currency that I was an atheist and did not scruple to drink or even frequent houses of ill fame. This unmerited calumny hardened my heart still more. I openly declared that in this miserable world there was nothing reprehensible in a man who, seeking for a brief respite, would resort to anything. Not only that, but if I was once convinced of the efficacy of such a course, I would not, through fear of anybody, shrink from following it. A garbled report of the matter soon reached the ears of the master and his devotees in Calcutta. Some of these came to me to have a first hand knowledge of the situation and hinted to me that they believed in some of the rumors at least. A sense of wounded pride filled my heart on finding that they could think me so low. In an exasperated mood, I gave them to understand plainly that it was cowardice to believe in God through fear of hell, and argued with them as to his existence or non existence, quoting several Western philosophers in support. The result was that they took leave of me with the conviction that I was hopelessly lost, and I was glad. I thought that perhaps Sri Ramakrishna also would believe that, and this thought filled me with uncontrollable pique. Never mind. I said to myself, if the good or bad opinion of a man rests upon such flimsy foundations, I don't care. But I was amazed to hear later that the master had at first received the report coldly without expressing an opinion one way or the other. And when one of his favorite disciples, Bhavanath, said to him with tears in his eyes, Sir, I cannot even dream that Narendra could stoop so low. He was furious and said, Hush, you fool! The mother has told me that it can never be so. I shan't be able to look at you if you speak to me again like that. But notwithstanding these forced atheistic views, the vivid memory of the divine visions I had experienced since my boyhood, and especially after my contact with Sri Ramakrishna, would lead me to think that God must exist and that there must be some way to realize Him. Otherwise, life would be meaningless. In the midst of all troubles and tribulations, I must find that way. Days passed, and the mind continued to waver between doubt and certainty. My pecuniary wants also remained just the same. The summer was over and the rains set in. The search for a job still went on. One evening, after a whole day's fast and exposure to rain, I was returning home with tired limbs and a jaded mind. Overpowered with exhaustion and unable to move a step forward, I sank down on the outer plinth of a house on the roadside. I can say whether I was insensible for a time or not. Various thoughts crowded in on my mind, and I was too weak to drive them off and fix my attention on a particular thing. Suddenly, I felt as if by some divine power, the coverings of my soul were removed one after another. All my former doubts regarding the coexistence of divine justice and mercy and the presence of misery in the creation of a blissful providence were automatically solved. By a deep introspection, I found the meaning of it all and was satisfied. As I proceeded homewards, I found there was no trace of fatigue in the body and the mind, and the mind was refreshed with wonderful strength and peace. The night was well nigh over. Henceforth, I became deaf to the praise and blame of worldly people. I was convinced that I was not born like humdrum people to earn money and maintain my family, much less to strive for sense pleasure. I began secretly to prepare myself to renounce the world like my grandfather. I fixed a day for the purpose and was glad to hear that the master was to come to Calcutta that very day. It is lucky, I thought. I shall leave the world with the blessing of my Guru. As soon as I met the master, he pressed me hard to spend that night with him at Dakshineshwar. I made various excuses, but to no purpose. I had to accompany him. There was not much talk in the carriage. Reaching Dakshineshwar, I was seated for some time in his room along with others when he went into a trance. Presently, he drew near me and, touching me with great tenderness, began to sing a song with tears in his eyes. I had repressed my feelings so long, but now they overflowed in tears. The meaning of the song was too apparent. He knew of my intentions. The audience marveled at this exchange of feeling between us. When the master regained his normal mood, some of them asked him the reason of it, and he replied with a smile, "Oh, it was something between him and me." Then at night he dismissed the others and calling me to his side said, "I know you have come for the mother's work and won't be able to remain in the world. But for my sake, stay as long as I live." Saying this, he burst into tears again. The next day, with his permission, I returned home. A thousand thoughts about the maintenance of the family assailed me. I began to look about again for a living. By working in an attorney's office and translating a few books, I got just enough means to live from hand to mouth, but it was not permanent and there was no fixed income to maintain my mother and brothers. One day the idea struck me that God listened to Sri Ramakrishna's prayers, so why should I not ask him to pray for me for the removal of my pecuniary wants? A favor the master would never deny me. I hurried to Dakshineshwar and insisted on his making the apple on behalf of my starving family. He said, "My boy, I can't make such demands. But why don't you go and ask the mother yourself? All your sufferings are due to your disregard of her." I said. I do not know the mother. You please speak to her on my behalf. You must. He replied tenderly, "My dear boy, I have done so again and again, but you do not accept her, so she does not grant my prayer. All right, it is Tuesday. Go to the Kali temple tonight. Prostrate yourself before the mother and ask her any boon you like. It shall be granted. She is knowledge absolute, the, the inscrutable power of Brahman, and by her mere will and by her mere will has given birth to this world. Everything is in her power to give." I believed every word and eagerly waited for the night. About 9 o'clock, the master commanded me to go to the temple. As I went, I was filled with a divine intoxication. My feet were unsteady. My heart was leaping in anticipation of the joy of beholding the living goddess and hearing her words. I was full of the idea. Reaching the temple, as I cast my eyes upon the image, I actually found that the Divine Mother was living and conscious, the perennial fountain of divine love and beauty. I was caught in a surging wave of devotion and love. In an ecstasy of joy, I prostrated myself again and again before the Mother and prayed, "Mother, give me discrimination, give me renunciation, give unto me knowledge and devotion. Grant that I may have an uninterrupted vision of Thee." A serene peace reigned in my soul. The world was forgotten. Only the Divine Mother shone within my heart. As soon as I returned, the Master asked me if I had prayed to the Mother for the removal of my worldly wants. I was startled at this question and said, "No, sir, I forgot all about it. But is there any remedy now?" "Go again," said he, "and tell her about your wants." I again set out for the temple, but at the sight of the mother again forgot my mission, bowed to her repeatedly, and prayed only for love and devotion. The master asked me if I had done it the second time. I told him what had happened. He said, "How thoughtless! Couldn't you restrain yourself enough to say those few words? Well, try once more and make that prayer to her. Quick." I went for the third time. But on entering the temple, a terrible shame overpowered me. I thought, what a trifle I have come to pray to the mother about. It is like asking a gracious king for a few vegetables. What a fool I am. In shame and remorse, I bowed to her respectfully and said, Mother, I want nothing but knowledge and devotion. Coming out of the temple, I understood that all this was due to the Master's will. Otherwise, how could I fail in my object no less than thrice? I came to him and said, Sir, it is you who have cast a charm over my mind and made me forgetful. Now please grant me the boon that my people at home may no longer suffer the pinch of poverty. He said, Such a prayer never comes from my lips. I asked you to pray for yourself, but you couldn't do it. It appears that you are not destined to enjoy worldly happiness. Well, I can't help it. But I wouldn't let him go. I insist I insisted on his granting that prayer. At last he said, All right, your people at home will never be in want of plain food and clothing. The above incident is no doubt a landmark in Noren's life. Hitherto, he had not realized the significance of the motherhood of God. He had nothing but unfeigned contempt for image worship. From now on, the full meaning and purpose of the worship of God through images was brought home to him, thus making his spiritual life richer and fuller. Sri Ramakrishna was delighted beyond measure at this transformation. The following account of Vaikuntnath Shannal, another devotee of the master who visited Dakshineshwar the next day, will bear this out. Coming to Dakshineshwar at noon, I found that master alone in his room and Narendra sleeping outside. Sri Ramakrishna was in a joyous mood, and as soon as I saluted him, he said, pointing to Narendra, Look here, that boy is exceptionally good. His name is Narendra. He would not accept the Divine Mother before, but did so yesterday. He is in straitened circumstances nowadays, so I advised him to pray to the Mother for riches, but he couldn't. He said he was put to shame. Returning from the temple, he asked me to teach him a song to the Mother, which I did. The whole of the last night he sang that song, so he is sleeping now. Then, with an unfeigned delight, he said, Isn't it wonderful that Narendra has accepted Mother? I said, Yes. After a brief pause, he repeated the question, and thus it went on for some time. At about 4 o'clock, Narendra came to Sri Ramakrishna before leaving for Kolkata. But no sooner had the master seen him than he came closer and closer to him and sitting almost on his left side, pointing first to himself and then to Narendra. Well, I see I am this and again that. Really, I feel no difference. As a stick floating on the Ganga seems to divide the water, which in reality is one. Do you see my point? Well, what exists after all but mother? What do you say? After talking a few minutes like this, he wished to smoke. I prepared tobacco and gave him the hookah. After one or two puffs at it, he said he would smoke from the chillam pipe. Then he offered it to Noren, saying, Pull at it through my hands. Noren, of course, hesitated. How could he defile the hands of his guru by touching them with his lips? But Sri Ramakrishna said, What foolish ideas you have. Am I different from you? This is myself, and that too is myself. He again put forth his hands towards the lips of Narendra, who had no alternative but to comply with his request. Narendra took two or three puffs. Sri Ramakrishna was about to smoke when Narendra hurriedly interfered, saying, Please wash your hands first, sir. But this protest was in vain. What silly ideas of differentiation you have, the master said, and smoked without washing his hands, talking all the while in an exalted mood. I was surprised to see Sri Ramakrishna, who could not take any food part of which had already been offered to somebody else, making this remarkable exception in the case of Narendranath. It gave me an idea of his love and kinship to Narendra. When at about 8 o'clock he was in his normal mood again, Narendra and myself took leave of him and walked to Kolkata. Afterwards, Narendra often said, Sri Ramakrishna was the only person who, ever since he had met me, believed in me uniformly throughout. Even my mother and brothers did not do so. It was his unflinching trust and love for me that bound me to him forever. He alone knew how to love another. Worldly people only make a show of love for selfish ends. Yes. So this brings us to the end of chapter 9.
That was quite an intense chapter. Am I audible,
Yes,
Sonality?
yes, perfectly audible.
Yeah, thank you for reading. This chapter, in many ways, it's a turning point in Swamiji's life because from the beginning paragraph, and if you see the last ending, how it ended, we see a transformation in Swamiji's life. At the beginning of this chapter, we see every common man's struggle in Naren's life. It is in fact very hard to believe that someone like Swami Vivekananda had to go through these kind of everyday problems. He had to go to court to deal with his legal issues relating to his house. These are the things we generally see in our houses and in newspapers and TV news. But to imagine that such things happen to Swamiji, and those things even influenced him in negative way into him believing that there is no God, there is no compassion in this world. Those things make him very real. And these whatever the struggles that he faced, these while reading this or while knowing this, Swamiji becomes more close to us. He gives us hope that you are not the only one who is struggling. I have also seen your struggles. I have also shed tears of poverty, of family struggles, of losing a parent. I have seen those things. He is assuring here. And in fact, to be honest, every seeker at one point there he or she will encounter a family problem. Most of the people they would encounter problems like when it comes to marriage. Every spiritual seeker will always have a rebellion, a debate with his family, where his family would be forcing him or her to marry, and the seeker would be very against to that idea. And this is not very new; it has always happened, starting from the days of, if you look at Adi Shankaracharya's life. When Adi Shankara was just 8 years old, his mother wanted him to marry. In fact, Adi Shankara's life and Swami Vivekananda's life are very close, were pretty similar, because Adi Shankara had also lost his father, and his mother was asking him to get married, but he had another purpose in his life to fulfill, so he was always against to marriage. So we know that one incident where his leg gets caught up in a river, and his leg will be bitten by a crocodile. At that time, he cries out for his mother and says, if you give me permission to become a sannyasi, I will come out from this river. If you do not give me permission, I shall die here in the mouth of this crocodile. So that incident reminds me of Swami Vivekananda's earlier life, where his mother and his family are forcing him to marry, and he is very much against that idea. Part of the reason is because at that time, Swamiji was like 20 or 21 years old when his father passed away. Vishwanatha Datta, he passed away in the year 1884. So Swamiji was in 20 or 21 years of age. At that time, he still did not have clarity on what his life is going to be. He still had those atheistic thoughts. He still had those rational thinking, and the enlightenment that was supposed to happen, it had not happened. So he was in that confusion. So in that confusion, he never wanted to commit to a family life. He always right from the beginning knew that this household life is not meant for him. So one day, in the third paragraph, I think we read that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa comes to Swami Vivekananda, and he shares a yogic secret with him. That is, if a person maintains 12 years of celibacy, that is brahmacharya, a person reaches a stage of plane where he or she is able to understand the world in its very subtle way, understand the unknown dimensions of the world. He says those things. In fact, what Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is saying here is he is sharing a yogic secret that is mentioned in Patanjali Yoga Sutra called as Urdhvareta. The concept of Urdhvareta is that in every person, the vital energy that is present in them, the creative energy as we call it, they work in two types. That is, one is Urdhvareta and second one is Adoreta. Adoreta means if a person uses his vital energy to create something, like to create a child, that is called as Adoreta. That is energy flowing downwards in the body. But if a person's retains that creative energy and he sublimates that energy to his heart chakra and to his mind chakra, that is called as urdhvareta. That is, Swamiji also talks about this in his complete works of Swami Vivekananda, where he mentions about ojas shakti present in every person. The ojas shakti comes when a person completely takes his senses into him and does not have any sexual thought or anything in his mind, and he stays in that celibate mode for many years. That kind of person will gain an energy called as ojas, which gives that person a very dynamic quality, and everything that person says or anything that person perceives will be on another level. We see many yogis try to attain that state of level. So that is what Sri Ramakrishna is telling to Swami Vivekananda. If you just wait for 12 years and do immense practice and be in immense brahmacharya, you will be able to reach that stage, he is saying. In the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, the sloka goes, urdhvam urdhvam nagah nata patatreto yasya cha. So goes the shloka. That is what his guru is teaching. Just by retaining the energy, a yogi is able to sublimate all the chakras, that is the kundalini chakras, and reach a very high state of yogic nature. So after saying that, Swami Vivekananda, he understands how important brahmacharya is, and his thought of brahmacharya becomes more strong after his guru says all these things. That's why when two men come to him and distract him by offering some meandering offers, he refuses them very strongly and tells them to invest their energies, invest their time and life in a devotional pursuit, in a spiritual pursuit. You cannot imagine a 20-year-old man saying this to a woman of his age, that too at those times. So we can see how much his guru's words had effect on him. But the very next thing, that the tragedy that happened to him was his father's death. His father's death was literally the turning point in his life, because till that time his father was the sole supporter of his family, that consisted of his mother, grandmother, two siblings, two sisters, and two brothers. Now that responsibility is on Swamiji's hands, but Swamiji still is a student. He's still studying, and how he is going to take care of his family? And in those times in the British era, it was very difficult to get a job. So, gee, I'm unable to listen. I think your mic is mute.
No, no, go on. No problem.
Yeah, yeah. So in those days, it was very difficult to get a job. So for years that later on happened, their family was struggling in utter poverty, but they did not show their poverty. Swamiji sometimes used to stay outside, and he used to tell his mother that he is eating at his friend's home, just to assure them that he is getting well fed and they need not worry. But in reality, he was not eating anywhere, and there were many days when he had to be empty stomach. This kind of struggles Swamiji had to face, and he used to think that why does a person who is in the pursuit of spiritual path has to go through these things? Does God really not have compassion? Why should He give me all these tests to pass, like that he used to think. And anytime if any of his friend used to talk about God, Swamiji used to quit him, shut him up and say, there is no God, don't stop praising God like that. If God was really there, why would I be suffering like this? He used to talk like that. So these kind of words it reached Ramakrishna Paramahamsa also, and the people around Ramakrishna ji were saying, "See, Mahaguru, you have placed so much trust on your student, but your student is spreading atheism all over, and how are you going to say that he is really your student?" And Ramakrishna always believed that he would come back. He is going through a certain struggle right now, but he will definitely come back to me, like that Ramakrishna used to say. And that incident really happened when Swami Vivekananda met Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. He was sitting with him, and he asked his master, why doesn't Ma Kali bless me? Why doesn't she take care of my family? Why can't she just wipe out all the poverty that we have? Like that he asks, and his master says, if you are really having that much struggle, you go and ask mother, and mother is so compassionate. If you really ask her, she is going to do. And so he goes inside the shrine, and once he looks at the majestic swarupa of Devi, he forgets every problem that he had ever had. He just bows down completely onto her, and he says, mother, give me knowledge, devotion and renunciation, like that he asks. I think this kind of experience even we too face whenever we see a big waterfall, or whenever if a person stands in front of Mount Everest or Himalayas, for just 1 second he or she is going to forget all of his problems, and just they will be blown away by the glorious thing that they are looking at. Similar thing happened to Swamiji when he is looking at Devi. When he looks at Devi, everything becomes so small to him, so that he forgets his family and his problems also. But once he comes out from the temple, once he sees his master, he is again reminded of the everyday life and everyday problems that he's facing. So he goes to his master and says, master, I am unable to pray in front of Devi, so you please bless me, like that he says. And Ramakrishna at first refuses, that he is not going to bless someone for their material needs. But after seeing the the pleading and crying of Swami Vivekananda, any guru, when he sees his disciple or student struggling, that guru cannot just stay simply. So he, out of compassion, blesses him that his family will be taken care of, and that did really happen. The family was again in the good hands of Devi. But after that incident, Swamiji became completely, a devotee of Devi. All the affirmations that he had about theism, atheism, rationality, and all, they got dissolved one by one, and Sri Ramakrishna was able to see that change, that his disciple is becoming the instrument that he wanted to be. And at the last paragraphs we see how much compassionate, how much love he had for his guru Swami Vivekananda, when he says that all the love, all the service that he is talking about, that all came from his guru, when no other people in the world trusted him, no family member, no friends trusted him. It was his guru who really trusted him. He says in his very utter compassionate words. Here we see how important a guru and a shishya, the disciple tradition, is. In India, we have many great gurus who, out of compassion, went to great lengths to help their students. For example, when we look at Dronacharya and Arjuna, we see how Dronacharya used to share so much knowledge more than his own son Ashwatthama, who was the biological son of Dronacharya. Even for Ashwatthama also, he never taught the Brahmastra Prayoga, but for Arjuna he taught the Brahmastra just because he trusted that Arjuna was the sole inheritor of his knowledge. That is the difference between a guru and any other person. Generally, what happens is if a father passes away, his wealth and his inheritance goes to his son. But if a guru passes away, all the knowledge, all the wisdom that he gained, it does not go to his son always. It goes to the beloved student that he had. That is the greatness of a guru. Dronacharya or Arjuna or Chanakya or Chandragupta, we see every now and then how a guru shapes a student, and the classic example for that in the last 100 years is Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna Paramhamsa. Everywhere Swamiji used to give a speech, he always used to say, I am repeating my master's words, this is my master's voice, he used to say. So in this chapter we see how Narendra becomes Swami Vivekananda, and the transformation we can see.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Mystic. It was absolutely like the flow that you talked about the transformation. You properly noted down the stages and how the transition actually happened. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and the additional stories about Acharya Shankaracharya and Arjun and all. What struck me while reading, I don't know if you noticed or not, like many a time it happens that whenever I read these, there are certain paragraphs or places where, by God's grace, I feel very teary eyed. Like I was almost on the
Yes,
verge of
yes.
crying. And
Yeah.
that is where, when I feel so fulfilled, that
Mhm.
I feel it's like no less than a prasad. It's like
Right,
when I'm
right.
trying to read, it's my worship, and that if the tears do come, then it's like the worship has been accepted.
Yes,
So
yes. And
yeah, and you know, Swami Vivekananda is someone, like, imagine a person who has just lived for 39 years,
right.
just 39 years, and what has he done? All the transition, including whatever is written in this chapter, the previous chapters also, like, he is a person who was born with a silver spoon, a
Right.
rich family, so well to do, having luxurious life, and doing things that, like, he was into so many extracurricular activities,
Yes,
studying,
yes.
apart from studying just the academic things, he was also pursuing Western philosophy, Indian scriptures, everything. He was everywhere. In music also, he was so much everywhere, like in games, and he was very famous among his friends as leadership and everything. So you see that variation of the
Mhm.
how versatile was his personality, at the same time how versatile was his life also. Like, he has seen extreme wealth and he has seen extreme poverty, both. So it
True.
is very rare in a human's life to see both. We either are
Yes, yes.
poor all our life, or we are rich all our life, or we are stably in
Right.
the middle class. Very few people I have, like, we can see in history who have seen both. Number one, this is a contrast. Another thing that struck me is the number of, um, how he has been tested in this period.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Maslow's hierarchy of needs always stands as a reference to me. So if we look
Mm.
at that hierarchy, we know that physiological needs is the basic,
True.
ground level need. Then comes your
Mm.
safety and security, then love and belonging, then self esteem, and then self actualization. So,
Yes, yes.
physiological needs is so very important. Even Swami Vivekananda himself had told that if you do not have food in your stomach, you cannot do spirituality. But look at
Exactly.
this person, regardless of he was atheist or non atheist. he was so much determined towards his own personal ethics in the sense like he was having self-respect to the extent that he would not express his grief or pain to someone to
Exactly.
gain his sympathy.
True.
Like he would cry, he would do things, he would talk to God, he would express
True.
his feelings, but he would not reach out to people for seeking help or sympathy. So
Right. Right.
he did his best to provide for his family, but at the same time, he did not want to, you know, हाथ फैलाना जिसे कहते हैं like in Hindi.
Mm-hmm.
He did not want to be like this, give me tips.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I remember one quote by him where he said, "The hands are made only to give."
Mm-hmm.
So all these like men tested from such circumstances can only say these things, right? When he
True.
had
True.
nothing, at that moment also he did not seek anything. And imagine his strength in his character is he's going to his friend's place on the invitation. When offered
Mm-hmm.
food, he's denying that food, saying that I had eaten at home.
Exactly.
The reason why he denies, not ego. He's thinking that my family is not
My
eating.
family is not
How can
eating.
I eat?
Mm.
So this is what you are doing actually. It's like you are not breaking the rules even when the police is not there. In absence
True.
of surveillance, you are not breaking rules. Rules in the sense that there is always a reason behind what the rule has been
Mm.
framed with, right? So the family was not there to actually see that is he eating or not eating. They won't know, no.
True. True.
He could have aram se taken the food, but he was being
Exactly.
so true to himself.
Yes.
So
Yes.
see the purity of atheism in him also. Even if suppose
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that he was atheist, what an atheist! It's very
Exactly.
difficult to find such atheists in today's world like this, right? Like
Mm.
who will sacrifice some basic requirements like food? You are starving for the thought of your own family. And not only that,
Exactly.
in the other end also he is going back to home. He is eating
Mm.
less so that he can save for the other members of the family,
True.
or
True.
sometimes even deny food, saying that I already
He
had
had
food in my house.
eaten. Mm.
Amount of sacrifice, amount of love for the family. Whereas like
Exactly.
he is a a monk mentality person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Still so much of love for family. The family whom he is ready to renounce, he's concerned about that family to this extent. So these are rare combinations in his character. Like this, in a way, challenges the martial laws hierarchy of needs. You know,
Mm.
when you have the force of truth, the force of love, and the fearlessness in the character
Mm-hmm.
inbuilt, then you can challenge physiological needs as well.
True. True. Indeed.
He is roaming around with barefoot. He is hungry. He is jobless.
Mm.
Like a person of self respect is getting slammed, doors slammed on the face
Mm.
in so many places. This is not, hurting his ego. Some people would feel like,
Yeah.
how?
Yeah.
I'm so talented. I'm so reputed. These people used to roam around me just a few days back. Only after my father passed away, they're turning their
Mm.
heads away. But he will never,
He.
like in this chapter, it is never here where he, wrote in his own writings
Mm.
also, where he expressed those feelings that how dare they do so. Like he mentioned that these people did this to tell the truth,
Mm.
but he didn't, have the what to say resentment towards that. It was like he was
Exactly.
just accepting the truth as it is. It is known,
True.
okay,
True.
this is how they are, this is how they are doing, but this reality is not changing his own approach towards life or people.
True. True.
This is
Usually,
another.
in
Yeah,
yes, yes.
tell.
Usually in psychology, in child psychology especially, they classify two types of children called one is dandelion children and another is orchid children. So, what is the difference in these two personalities? Is orchid children are children who, in their childhood, if they are faced with any bad experiences or traumas, they become very bitter in their life. They turn out to be very rude, negative, and often inherit very bad qualities just because they had seen very bad experiences in their childhood. That is, be it being scolded or beaten or traumatized, such things. And dandelion children, just like the flower dandelion, it keeps flowing. Those are the kind of children who, if they have faced any problems in their childhood, be it hatred or trauma from other people, still they survive all that, and the bitterness in their childhood experience, the bitterness in their life, do not make them a bitter person. They make them a better person. So such kind of people are very rare. Those kind of people are called dandelion personalities. One such example to me comes just parallel to Swami Vivekananda's life. Almost similar experience happens to our late President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam ji. Kalamji was also, he also had his share of struggles and all, and his father also passed away. And after that, there was a very dark phase of his life when his whole family used to struggle for one meal a day. And one day, Kalamji had got scholarship in his school that he will be provided to two times a meal in his college throughout the year, but throughout the year, he did not eat the second meal. He only ate first morning meal and he skipped the evening meal just because at his home his family was not eating a second meal. This similarity in both of these two great personalities, what it says is great people think alike, great minds think alike, we say, no. That's what shows up in their characters. I think that's why they are really great. And that too, Swami Vivekananda, when he was facing all this, he was just a 20-year-old guy, like we say angry old man, right? He was in that phase. So these kind of rejections outright, just on his face they're closing doors, these kind of things, did not give place for hatred in his heart. He did not resent anyone. He did not feel like, okay, I'm going to become a big success and take revenge on you. No, he did not do all that, because just his innate nature and his innate strive was that somewhere in deep down he knew he had that love for everyone, and he had accepted that his share of problems that he is facing right now is his own responsibility. That's why in a later part of his life, when he was giving discourses, every now and again he used to say this line that take responsibility onto your shoulders, take responsibility onto your shoulders. He says, he quotes the famous quote from the Gita saying, Klaibyam masmak gamah partha naita tupapadyate kshudram hrudaya daurbalyam. He says, this is a quote from Gita where Krishna says to Arjuna, Klaibyam masma gamah partha means leave all the, you know uh, Clibem means, what can you say, being afraid of the world. Leave all your fears aside, Partha, he says. Naita tupapadyate Kshudram Hridaya Daurbalyam. Whatever the differences you are having in your heart, leave it off. Just do your work, the world will continue. So says Krishna. I think knowingly or unknowingly, Swamiji really inherited those qualities in him. It was like inbuilt in him, and that is the reason he was able to stay and stand strong in his years when the problems came crushing on him.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I totally agree and very beautifully put. I especially like those places where, you know, not just about this, like his conditions were so bad, right? Not only he alone is suffering, his entire family, his younger brothers, sisters, mother, everyone is suffering from poverty, number one. Number two, there is like this toxic extended family that actually brought cases against them and everything. So it was a toxic trauma also, you see, uh, already in the, it, at least like it is a salad of all different kinds of troubles that you can have in life. Like Swamiji's life
Exactly.
is like that. So he dealt with the toxicity also, with a calm mind, with his wit and intelligence and everything combined together. He won that case, even in that situation. So here
So
you
true.
see how he handled the toxicity and the poverty going on. And on top of it, you have that, as you mentioned, he was just 2021, and at that time,
Yes.
getting offer from rich woman. So it's not just
Mm.
woman, rich plus woman, both coming
Yes,
together.
yes,
So it was a double
yes.
allurance. Right? Like at that age when
Exactly.
hormonal rush and everything is very high, imagine a person who is already financially so tormented is not
Mm.
at all taken by any kind of greed, or you know he displayed tremendous amount of fearlessness plus greedlessness. Like, he was never near any kind of illusion, though
True,
he
true.
probably did never know um, he would lead his life in that direction. Like he was just getting into that, in what direction I'm going to lead my life. But in his head he was very clear, very sorted as to
Mm.
what kind of life I want. Like no
True, true.
disregard to the marital, householder's life, but
Yeah.
as Ramakrishna Paramhans himself told him that special day when in his mind he was deciding that he will
Mm.
renounce and become a monk,
Yes.
he had that, that um, I can uh, become, like I can leave everything, but
Mm.
Ramakrishna Paramhams himself was like, let be here until the time I am here. So I know
Mm.
you want to leave, but be here. So it's not that, no, one life, particular different lives are coming to the world for different purposes. So if someone can directly or indirectly somewhat sense what they are meant for, they choose that
Mm.
particular path. Certain paths suits someone, certain paths do choose, different paths suits someone else. So likewise I think, like, his path was already destined, but very beautifully he, embraced monkhood also, and renunciation, all the qualities that, because he was so clear in how to discriminate between the glitter and the gold, right? Like he
Yes,
knew what is
yes.
illusion and what is truth. So for people who is not distracted by things,
Mm.
for them only monkhood is easy.
True,
Householders'
true.
life will need illusion. Without illusion, you
Mm.
cannot bind together, right? So householders' contribution. Ramakrishna Paramhans also mentioned that he is not uh, made for one person's love, and he is not
Right,
made
right.
for carrying one family. His purpose is bigger.
Yes,
So that
yes.
it doesn't mean at all like marriage, everyone should become monk, or everyone, like only monkhood
Right,
is
right.
good. Because if everyone becomes monk, then who will be the householder? It's a combination of
True.
everything, entire world. But like for his life, I feel is a very exemplary one, which shows
Mm.
clarity, discrimination, and
Mm.
power of, like, strength of character is tremendous. Like he he stood the test of time very phenomenally. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think we have to close soon. You need to go somewhere
Okay,
maybe.
okay. Yes.
Yeah. So I
I just
think
I think in this chapter, the great takeaway for us, there are many takeaways, but for me personally, the big takeaway is no matter how many hardships come to you, to stay strong, half of the effort should be from your heart, your side, and half of the help should be from the divine. You should hold the divine's feet, and that will give the support for you to stay strong, to face anything. This reminds me of a Kannada poem. It's written by DVG, where he says, ಸುರಪ ಸಭೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಗಾದಿಸುತ್ತ ವಸಿಷ್ಠ ಸ್ಪರ್ಧೆ ದರೆಯೊಳದರಿಂ ಹರಿಶ್ಚಂದ್ರಂಕೆ ತಪನೆ ಬರುವದಿಂದೆತ್ತಣ ಬೇಡದ ಪ್ರಾರಬ್ಧ ಕರುಮಗತಿ ಕೃತಮವೋ ಮಂಕುತಿಮ್ಮ. The meaning of that poem is, Harishchandra, Satya Harishchandra, he was happily living with his family. He was happily looking after his kingdom and was being a king. But somewhere up above in the heaven, Indra and Vishwamitra were having a debate on who is the greatest person who stands for truth. And there, as Vasistha gives the name of Harishchandra, and Vishwamitra wants to test Harishchandra if he can really stand the struggles of man life. So Vishwamitra, the problem for Harishchandra started at heaven, and where did it end? It ended in a graveyard. We know the story how Harishchandra's life ended. But throughout the story, Harishchandra never at once came down, and he never gave up his principles. That is the Satya. Even today, we remember Harishchandra because he is Satya Harishchandra. He stood for what he really valued, that is the truth. So, no matter how many struggles that come onto your life, you need to hold the things that you really believe in, your principles, your core essence. And if you really take that and stand strong, even the divine, in the Harishchandra story, Shiva comes and finally solves everything. That's what happens. Even the gods will come to you if you stay strong to your ethics. And yeah, that's the
Yes,
takeaway I feel.
absolutely. Like a very good point you brought in. I actually wanted to speak about it. I'll take 2 minutes to add a
Yeah, 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 sure.
bit of my own thing I was thinking of. Like the point in this chapter where he was telling no that he was coming back from job
Mm,
search and he was drenched in all the rain. He was completely
mm,
not fed a whole day. And while coming back,
true.
he almost fainted. He sat in front of someone's house and lots of
Mm,
thoughts was crossing his mind because at that time he
yes,
was
yes.
in doubt if God exists. Why does he not listen to, and
Mm,
all those things, like all those thoughts were
true, true.
clouding his mind. And he says that after some time it was like almost like a divine intervention. Something overpowered him and all those clouds of
Mm,
thoughts were removed, and it all felt like it
right.
all dissolved. He didn't
True,
clearly
true.
mention what logic, what
Mm,
was the logical conclusion of all his doubts. He did not mention all of that, but
mm,
he mentioned that he felt the release of those cloudy thoughts, that was
true, true.
clouding his mind to
Mm,
to dissuade him from whatever faith he used to earlier have on God. So
yeah, yeah.
this, I connected this thing with
Mm,
one of my own experiences by God's grace.
mm,
Is that actually when you stick to truth,
mm,
maybe for a very long period of time, it may feel that it's
mm,
very defeating. Like
mm,
you choose truth, it is not a promise of you. It is not a promise for you to win something. Like it
mm.
may appear initially that you are losing, okay,
Right, right.
but on the face of losing, also, if you still keep on sticking to the truth, you
Mm,
win very subtly. You don't know how you win it. Like you can't even
exactly.
imagine how you won it. Like it was just like everything, every door was closed. It was completely
Mm,
impossible, but you suddenly land to the winner stage. One small example was
mm,
I had done one art and poetry exhibition, and I had booked a stall with some
mm,
a lady who gives stalls, like rents out
Okay.
stalls. So she had taken money from me and then postponed two of her shows twice, and she did not
Mm.
inform me. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so my products were ready, and I had to like sell it or do the exhibition in the Ganesh Chaturthi time only. So
Okay.
I like, it's a long story. Just cutting short, something happened, all of like confusion and everything. She agreed that she took my entire money of booking, and she did not give me stall. I
Oh.
had to take from someone else, and she was not returning my money. Okay, and she told that she will return the whole money, and she gave 50% of it,
Mm-hmm.
50% she was not returning. And I was following up with her very respectfully, trying to, you know, what to say, poke her conscience that, bhai, you are a businesswoman. What is this
Mm-hmm.
ethics? I am a potential customer. I was your customer. I'll not like to do business again with you, because if this is your business ethics, you are taking money from someone. You promise, because you promise to return the money because you did not give the service, and you are
Mm-hmm.
not returning the money. That is not a good customer service at all, right? So but she was doing like that, and I almost gave up, because what else you can do after you go after or follow up on someone, because it was just around 4,000, and for 2,000 rupees you do lakhs and lakhs of rupees of business every day, and you cannot return 2,000 rupees to someone. You need multiple followers for that. 2 months, 3 months, I'm following up. So, and I am not a goon, right? Or I do not have goon friends, and I don't want to take goons with me to threaten and get my 2,000 rupees. That is not my choice. So one fine day, I was like almost surrendered to God. I was thinking, what is this going on? Like, this is my hard-earned money, even though it is just 2,000, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how can someone just take it away? And I being so, like, I'm protecting her dignity. She comes
Mm-hmm.
in the area where I can actually badmouth her, and her business can collapse, like in that
Okay.
area at least. But I was not doing even that. I was protecting her. I was protecting her respect and everything, and she was doing all that to me. So I was just talking this out to God in a very, I could
Mm-hmm.
feel that I was very inside of me telling this to, while telling this to God. And you won't believe, that same day suddenly it came and crossed my mind that let's dine out. I just called my mom and told that let's take dinner somewhere outside today. Not feeling to have at home. And she agreed. My mom agreed. Let's go. And I got to the spot, to that restaurant where exhibition was happening, and this lady was doing the exhibition. Okay. And it is such a coincidence that I suddenly decided to go to that restaurant, which was just nearby the exhibition. And that day she was doing the exhibition, and she was also present herself. And I felt like,
Oh.
oh my God, what a divine opportunity. So I
Mm.
just walked inside. I did not
Mm.
even like have to take people with me or something. I
Yeah.
just walked inside, and when she saw me, she was
Mm.
like, I'm giving, I'm giving. And she just took out the money and gave me 2,000. I didn't even have to spend a bad slang also out of my mouth to,
Wow.
get the money back. So I felt so blessed that day. I felt
Mm.
that, okay, when you actually, stick to the truth and finally surrender, even if it is getting defeated, God
Yeah.
makes ways for the justice to come to you.
Yes, yes, indeed.
You know, the same thing I noticed here. He was sticking to whatever he was doing
Mm.
truthfully. His
True.
self-respect, his care for his family, his, strength in his character. He's canceling out the alliances, fear, and anything, everything that he's discriminating and navigating
Mm.
through. And then this divine intervention happens, where all his doubts also resolve on its own, without
Right.
him making any effort to actually logically make any um,
Mm.
resolution to it. So
True. It
that
was an.
shows, like, if we really choose
Mm.
to be true, we can really see the divine aspect of life also.
Exactly. if we really, do our karma properly, and if we
Yes.
really be in a good intention at our heart, then maybe not now, but at least later, the justice to that will be given by
Hmm.
God.
True. Very true. Like usually, as you mentioned, the two different psychologies of children. Some
Mm,
people like get victimized to the extent that they no longer remain victims; they become perpetrators themselves.
true, true.
So that is where you need to restrain. That is where again
Mm,
the strength of character comes to use. You
yes,
know injustice has been done to you, but that does not give you the license to do injustice to someone else. It
true,
takes
true.
you to that same area where someone else did wrong to you. If you do the same thing to the other person, then
Mm,
what's the difference?
yeah,
Doesn't make any difference. It's two different patterns. It's like AI training tool only. Have
yeah,
two
yeah,
different patterns, and you have to stick to your pattern. Otherwise it is the same pattern you got trained with, the
mm,
devil evil pattern.
right,
So
right.
some people probably with their past lives patterns, those are strong. They can stick to that even in
Mm,
different circumstantial other patterns available. Like this happened with Duryodhan, felt. Like there are many
right.
stories we can discuss in some other episodes. But
Mm,
yeah, lovely discussion, Mystic. I would like try to do a visualization on it, the different events, what happened in this chapter, and what were the learning points. It is coming to my mind. If I get time, I'll try to do. I'll reach out to you also, if we can do something pictorially also as a representation of chapter 9.
yeah,
So,
sure.
yeah, thank you
This was
so
a
much.
nice discussion. Yeah,
Yeah,
I also enjoyed listening and also talking about it, and to get glimpse into this side of Swami's life is also very inspiring to young people like me and to anyone who is listening. So they fulfilled.
yes, yes. Thank you very much. Hope to do it again very soon and
Mm,
continue doing by God's grace, so that it
yes,
helps us and everyone else whoever listens.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you to
Yep. Bye bye.